Wow. One meal is great. 3-day fast is great. 3 days is kind of an optimum amount because it takes 3 days for the body to fully switch from a sugar burning metabolism to a fat burning metabolism. That change happens over 3 days. It doesn't happen like right away. People think that, they've been fasting for, 14 hours or something like that. And they go, okay, now I'm burning fat. Well, not necessarily. Some people do, but if you actually have a sugar burning metabolism with insulin resistance, insulin blocks you from using fat for energy, and it's going to take about 3 days. So I think that's kind of a great place to be is, one meal a day and fasting for 3 days periodically. In fact, I had someone come in yesterday. This is actually,
Hello, welcome to the Fixed Blood Sugar webinar. It is a beautiful Wednesday. I hope it is beautiful where you are as well. I'm not even going to ask Dr. Saunders because it's always beautiful where he is. Sometimes it
it's
rains.
overcast.
Yeah, sometimes it rains. See, overcast. And actually, it is here too. I'm actually in South Dakota. So Dr. Saunders is coming to you from California, Santa Barbara. Is that where you're
Yeah.
at today? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So, but my kids actually get out of school tomorrow, which is exciting. And I actually love summer with my kids. It's fun.
Yeah.
And we're gonna have a whole new life for the summer, let me tell you, when they're home. I have two middle schoolers, so it gets a little bit crazy and busy here, but I'm excited for that. How about you, Dr. Saunders? Anything going on this summer for you guys? You have some kids, you have kids
Oh,
all over at different stages.
yeah. We're all over the place. We're going at the Kern River. We're going whitewater rafting. We got a lot of rain this year. There's a lot of snow melt, so the river's gonna be really full. Last time we went, it was practically empty. We were skidding the bottom a lot, so it's gonna be really good.
Oh, that's fun. Uh, okay, I've asked you this before on a webinar, but tell everybody, how many kids do you actually have?
Okay, actually, what does that mean? So I have 13 children, and 9 of them are stepchildren, and 4 of them. So 4 of them are my children from my first wife, and then I married somebody with 9 children. So we have 13 children together,
Awesome.
and they're everywhere from 38 years old down to 17, and yeah, they're
So fun.
great.
So fun. All right, we have a lot of people hopping on here. I feel like I should show all of you guys my special thing that's over here so you can learn a little bit more about me. I'll show you. I'm going to take my blur off. This is my most exciting purchase of the year. That's really sad, actually, but it is. Look at that locker. How cool is that? It's in my office. I got to move it, but I have all my stuff in there and it makes me feel young and happy. Isn't it the cutest thing? They
It's a
actually
good
have
thing we can't smell it.
yeah, right. No, it
It
smells
smells like a
wonderful.
locker.
It smells wonderful. But I have a lot of my I like to give gifts. I have a lot of my like gift wrapping things in there and cards and paper. I like paper and pens and notebooks and all of that kind of stuff. So I have a lot of stuff like that in there. But you can actually get those at Target. And Target, they come in a lot of different colors. So just a fun little fact about me. There you go. All right, but you guys, we are here for the Fixed Blood Sugar webinar. So we are going to be talking about type 2 diabetes. And one of the things that I wanted to have Dr. Saunders do today is just give us an overview. We have some people who have hopped on here who maybe have heard about diabetes or they have a loved one who has it, and they just want to learn more about what diabetes is, what is happening in the body. So if you could give us, let's start with that, and a reminder that Dr. Saunders is not your doctor. So anything that we recommend or talk about here today, we would prefer that you would talk to your medical provider before you implement any of our suggestions. So talk to us about diabetes. What is it? What's going on in the body?
Okay. Several months ago, I had a patient come in, and I did some tests on him, and he was having issues. So I did some tests on him. And the lab called me after the tests were done. Well, before all the tests were done, they called me and said, "We have a panic value." And I said, "What? What's the panic value?" and they said, this guy's mercury level is 50 times the upper limit of normal. We've never seen anyone that high. Is he still alive? And I'm like, yeah. So I called him. I said, how you doing? He said, great. I'm out on the channel. We're fishing. I said, what are you fishing for? He said, well, same thing always. We're looking for swordfish. I'm like, oh, swordfish. Do you eat a lot of swordfish? He's like, yep, eat a lot of swordfish. I said, well, your mercury levels are really high, like 50 times the upper limit of normal. The lab called me with a panic value, wondering if you were still alive. He goes, yep, still alive. Reports of my death are greatly exaggerated. So I said, okay, so here's an issue, right? This guy's got mercury. He's got a lot of mercury, and he's actually out in the channel fishing for more swordfish. And I said, no, swordfish is the highest level of mercury of any fish. It's big. You can't eat swordfish anymore. He's like, what? That's my favorite fish. And I'm like, I always have the bearer of bad news, right? I have to tell everybody, oh, you have diabetes, you can't eat anything sweet anymore. Oh, you can't drink any alcohol anymore. Oh, you got to quit smoking. You gotta stop whatever it is your favorite thing is to do. Yeah, some guy just really objected to ice cream. He goes, he had diabetes, right? So I said, he says, you're not making me give up my ice cream. I said, what? Why? He said, I gave up cocaine. I gave up heroin. I gave up marijuana. I gave up drinking. I gave up smoking. I gave up sex. And all I have left is my ice cream. There's nothing left in the world. And I'm like, you have diabetes. How much ice cream do you eat? He goes, oh, just 1 pint of Ben and Jerry's every night in front of the TV. And I'm like, yeah, that's not going to go over very well. So a couple of months later, he came back and he said, I gave up my ice cream. He says, all I could do because it's just so uncomfortable to be getting up to pee every night 10 times. So anyway, this guy with the mercury, I said, you've got to give up the swordfish. And he said, what? I got to give it away? I'm like, sell it. I don't know, do whatever. Because normally what he does, they catch a swordfish and he has it filleted and packed on ice before they even reach shore. And then he puts it in his freezer and he's eating swordfish every day, right? Well, that's a lot of mercury. So he was getting really toxic, and that's probably why he was having some of the symptoms, neurological symptoms and things that he was having. So what should I do in that kind of a case? Should I tell him he has to give up his swordfish? Well, yeah. And what else? Well, he has to go on a detox program to get the mercury out of his body, right? And if you give EDTA or some other chelating agent to take the mercury out of the body, you can dislodge it from wherever it is in the body and actually cause more problems. So he has to go on this really long program of taking these oral chelating agents and having cilantro with his meals because that helps get mercury out. And so he's got a program to do to detox. Now, why do I tell you that? Because type 2 diabetes is exactly the same thing. If I were to call you up and say, oh my gosh, I got a panic value. Your blood sugar is 300. And you're like, oh no, what do I got to do? You got to detox. And you got to, so number 1, stop eating sugar. Number 2, get the sugar out. Well, how do I do that? Well, you got to exercise. And use up all that excess sugar that you have and take all the sugar out of your body. Well, how do I do that? Well, that's really easy. We wrote a diabetes solution kit that explains everything in detail. It's like, okay, start with number 1, phase 1, really simple. You're on a very minimal carbohydrate diet. We allow some, okay, 20 grams. That's like 1 slice of bread or 1 apple. It's not a lot, right? And what does that mean? Well, that means you're not getting enough carbohydrates for your body to burn every day. You're gonna have to start burning fat for energy. Well, what does that do? Well, switching to fat burning metabolism is the detox mechanism. It gets it out because your cells, when you are eating sugar over a long period of time, your cells fill up with sugar. They have too much. They're toxic. That's what all diabetes is, just toxicity of glucose. It's too much. So, if someone eats some, I don't know, salmon or occasional swordfish or whatever, and they've got a little bit of mercury, it's not going to hurt them. It's not a big deal. But when you're 50 times the upper limit of normal, you got to do something about that. That's type 2 diabetes. That's type 2. That's all it is. You're just toxic. And so being toxic on sugar means stop eating sugar. Just like the guy has to stop eating swordfish, right? Can't do that anymore. And then detox. And then the detox program is all written out, spelled out very simply in phase 1 of the diabetes solution kit. So that's type 2 in a nutshell. It's really that easy.
Good. What did you say it's called when the lab calls you to make sure someone's still alive?
Panic value.
Panic value. Okay. I'm looking for a title for this. And I think we really should have called the diabetes solution kit something like that or having to do with that. I like that. All right. I got to think through this now. Interesting. And really, it is the same type of situation. It's almost too bad that once they do the test, they don't call and say, quick, let's detox,
They have a panic value. Yeah, exactly. They go, ho hum, you have diabetes. Okay, here, take this pill and that pill and good luck. Bye. It's like, what?
Yeah, that is so interesting. I love it. Okay, so if you're new here, welcome to Dr. Saunders teaching. This is how he teaches us, and I love it because it makes difficult things make sense. And so as you guys have questions about type 2, please post those in the Q&A if you're on Zoom. That's the best place to manage those. And if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, we'll do our best to get to some of those as well. Feel free to leave your comments there. Hopefully someone will get back to you with a response. But I saw a message here that had come in from Anne, and Anne said, well, first of all, let me ask this. Oftentimes when people have type 2, are they typically overweight?
Typically, yes, but not always. You can have insulin resistance without being overweight. You can have all of the complications, including like renal failure, kidney failure, neuropathy, heart disease, all of the complications of diabetes, and not be overweight. So it's not a weight thing, really, specifically. It's an insulin resistance thing.
Anne had said, I need to lose weight. I've been eating one meal a day and I plan to do a 3-day fast. Any other recommendations or thoughts on that?
Wow. One meal is great. 3-day fast is great. 3 days is kind of an optimum amount because it takes 3 days for the body to fully switch from a sugar burning metabolism to a fat burning metabolism. That change happens over 3 days. It doesn't happen like right away. People think that, they've been fasting for, 14 hours or something like that. And they go, okay, now I'm burning fat. Well, not necessarily. Some people do. But if you actually have a sugar burning metabolism with insulin resistance, insulin blocks you from using fat for energy. And it's going to take about 3 days. So I think that's kind of a great place to be is, one meal a day and fasting for 3 days periodically. In fact, I had someone come in yesterday. This is actually one of those things that makes it worthwhile, my practice. So he came in yesterday and he's like, I said, how do you feel? He's 79 years old. How do you feel? He says, I feel great. I have never felt better in my life. And I'm like, in your life? Like when you were 20 years old? No, I've never felt better in my life. He says, I've been working out. I lifted, he said, 18 tons the day before, 100 pounds at a time, but 18 tons of lifting with different muscles and everything. And he said, I do 3 days of fasting once a month, 72 hours once a month. And he said, it goes great. It's easy. In fact, day 3 is Sunday. And he says, I feel better. I feel clearer. that, with the fat burning. And he says, can I do 4 days? And I'm like, sure, you can do 4 days. And it's just, when people do what I tell them to do and it works, I love that. That's so good.
That's funny. David said, I have a couple of problems, I think, related to diabetes. One, I got a urinary infection, which some sites say is related to infections because it says neuropatia, but I wonder.
Neuropathy.
That's what I'm wondering. Because of neuropathy, and took some antibiotics and drank a lot of water. And then I got severe itchy skin, which some sites say is related to diabetes or kidney problems. What should I do?
Itchy skin is so many things. It's usually a release of histamine for some reason. And it could be bacteria in your intestines. It could be an infection, liver disease. Not usually kidney disease doesn't cause. It's usually a liver problem. If you're not detoxing well, you can get toxins build up and you get itchy skin. I don't know, but yeah, the neuropathy can cause the bladder to dysfunction. So a dysfunctional bladder in some way, urinary frequency, all of those things. If sugar is spilling in the urine, you're more likely to get urinary tract infections as well. So yeah, those are all possible. So I think just the very first thing is to start on phase 1 of the program. Start on phase 1. Stop eating sugar, and eat all of the vegetables. We have like the free foods you can eat as much as you want. It's broccoli and celery and lettuce and spinach and cabbage and all that stuff. You can have as much of that as you want. So kind of like a meat and vegetable diet kind of thing would be really good.
Okay. If you are not familiar with bartonwebinar.com, here's our site. This is your hub, so you're going to want to make sure you check this out. Links to our YouTube channel. There's Dr. Saunders. He's very excited about whatever he's talking about, right?
Very animated.
That's every day. That's great. Okay, but we also have our top asked questions right here, which I think is so good. We get asked these on nearly every single webinar, so check those out. A bunch of products that we talk about, but you'll also find the diabetes solution kit here. And so if you're not familiar with what phase 1 and phase 2 is, that's inside this diabetes solution kit. You can get that for under $20 if you want just the digital version. You can also get a hard copy mailed to you. Well, it's actually soft, it's paperback, but you can get that mailed to you for an additional price. But the information is very, very good, and we talk about that a lot. So I just wanted to make mention of where this can be found. And if you use code webinar25, that's one word, you will save 25%. Okay, let's go back here to another question. Paul says, I have a family member from Korea who's visiting. She's elderly and dismisses her diabetes diagnosis and generally distrusts doctors in general. We tested her blood sugar and it's consistently between 200 and 400. She's not persuadable with scare tactics because she hasn't felt any obvious symptoms. How should we convince her that she needs to start working on it?
Yeah, that's a good question. Scare tactics, that's what doctors always use, right? I think scare tactics is bullying. I really don't think that is the right thing to do. I think giving people options and the best way to convince her, what if well, it's not exactly scare tactics. What if there was I don't know, some other family or friends or people that you know or people that she knows that have type 2 or that have, especially if they have neuropathy, or if she could go down to a dialysis center and start talking to people there with diabetes and say, oh yeah, I wish I would have done something 10 years ago. I wouldn't be in this position. Or just some way of allowing her to see that this could be a problem. You're muted.
Hadn't got to a question yet anyway, so it's okay. Frank and Pat said, I just read the info from Joe Barton on the diabetes detox program. Can you quickly explain the basics of the program? Okay, so I would have to know exactly what you're talking about, because you're either talking about the diabetes solution kit, which they do talk of, they call that sometimes the diabetes detox program, but there is the other. Let me know specifically what you're talking about. Or actually, you can email me too if you'd like, leslie@bartonpublishing.com. Okay, Anonymous said there's a lot of mention about type 3 diabetes. How is it related to type 1 and type 2?
Oh, it's kind of a strange way of putting it, type 3 diabetes. So type 1 is where the pancreas quits producing insulin and you don't have insulin. So if you don't have insulin, you need insulin. And that's where people need insulin injections. That's type 1 diabetes. The blood sugar goes up because sugar can't get into the cell because there's no insulin to bring it in through the membrane into the cell. So you have to inject insulin when you have type 1. Type 2 is where you're bringing sugar. You have a lot of insulin and you're bringing sugar into the cell a lot. And the cells are swelled up with sugar and they stop making insulin receptors. So now the insulin doesn't work and blood sugar goes up. So that's type 2. Type 3 isn't really a separate type of diabetes. It's a different manifestation of one of the complications of diabetes. So, and it's the neuropathy, what we call dementia. Where people, they don't remember things very well, or they're having problems with thinking, cognition. They can't calculate things very well. And so that is a metabolic problem. So people have been calling it type 3 diabetes. It's not type 3 diabetes. It's a complication of type 2 diabetes. Mm-hmm. And so, I don't mind that somebody's saying it's type 3 diabetes, but really, that's not what it is.
Okay. Elliot says, fasting for me means no food or water for 3 days. Is that possible?
Oh, yeah. In fact, the guy that I was talking about that came in yesterday, who's 79 years old and never felt better in his life, that's what he did. So we talked about options, and he said, well, what's the best way? And I said, dry fasting. Dry fasting means no food or water for 3 days. And he said, really? Can people do that? And I'm like, yeah, people can do that. It's all of the animal studies show that the best way is empty stomach. Don't put anything in your mouth, period. And that's the best way. But human beings don't like to do that. So, but that's more of just what you like. It's not what's best for your health. So yeah, dry fasting for 3 days. That's what I do. I do 3 days once a month. And that's what I explained to him. So he goes, well, if you can do it, then I can do it. And he did it. And with really good results.
Awesome. Okay. Valerie says, if you don't have a pancreas and are underweight, is it possible to reverse type 2 diabetes?
Okay. If you don't have a pancreas, you have type 1 diabetes, not type 2 diabetes. So is it possible to reverse it? If you don't have a pancreas, then you need to inject insulin and you need to take your enzymes to digest your food, because that's what the pancreas does. And you're also not going to make glucagon. So you have to be really careful if you don't have a pancreas, because it's not a minor thing. You have to regulate it externally because your body can't do it internally because you don't have a pancreas. So don't think that that's type 2 that you can reverse. That's not what it is. Your pancreas has a whole lot of functions that are very important for digestion, absorption, and maintaining your metabolism. So make sure you take care of that and do all of your external pancreas things. You have to keep track of what the pancreas would normally do. You have to do it now with either the continuous glucose monitor would be awesome, and then dietary things. Exercise is very important, and then maintaining your blood sugar.
Okay. All right. Joby says, what is your opinion on statin drugs to lower cholesterol? Which do you recommend? And you know what? We actually just talked about this last week uh, in detail. So that will be available on our YouTube channel. But if you want to give a quick overview, that'd be great.
Okay. Okay, quickly. Statin drugs block an enzyme called HMG-CoA reductase. This enzyme is what makes cholesterol. Every single cell in your body needs cholesterol and makes cholesterol. If you block that enzyme, then you decrease the amount of cholesterol that you make. If you decrease the amount of cholesterol that you make, you decrease your body's ability to reproduce cells, to make hormones, to make CoQ10, to make vitamin D. And so you no longer have hormonal support, and you have less of all of those pregnenolone, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, DHEA, all of those steroid hormones aren't made as much. So what happens when you lower cholesterol is people die younger. They don't live as long. So I don't recommend that you take that unless you have a specific problem, familial hypercholesterolemia, where you don't regulate cholesterol. So you have to do it externally. And that's where the benefit of statins are. So I have 2 patients in 30 years that I have prescribed statins for.
Very interesting. All right. This comes up a lot. Joan says, how do I take my meds if I dry fast?
Okay, so here's where you got to be really careful. If you're fasting, then your blood sugar is going to go down and your blood pressure is going to go down. And if you're taking medications, they may go down too much, and you might get hypoglycemia and hypotension. Hypotension is where you get dizzy when you stand up, your vision changes and headaches and all that other stuff. So the important thing then is that you may not, I tell my patients not to take their medications while they're fasting. And that even means the blood sugar medication. So blood sugar, blood pressure especially. There are some medications you can take while you're fasting, like if you're hypothyroid and you're taking thyroid medication, you can take that while you're fasting. That's not a problem. So certain medications are fine while you're fasting. But if you're taking stuff for your stomach, like omeprazole or one of those acid reducers, definitely don't take that. But other ones you may need to take.
Okay. All right. So we have a message here from Bob, and I don't know if you can see this in the Q&A, Dr. Saunders, at all, but he got some blood tests, or I think it says, I finally got my 4 tests done. Okay. So probably the tests that we recommend all the time. So yes. Bob says pre-diabetic for the past 15 years, but then on February 12th of 24, my A1C was 6.5, second one in a row at that level. So the doctor says I'm now diabetic. Started the diabetes solution kit in March, blood tests on April 9th, fasting glucose was 7, fasting insulin 59, blood test on May 9th, CRP was under or less than 0.3. A1C is now 5.9. Wow, that went down fast. And random cortisol, 272. Also blood work, April 9th of this year, cholesterol 5.4, LDL 3.6, HDL 1.4, non-HDL 4, triglycerides 1. Creatinine and EGFR numbers are getting worse and out of acceptable range past year. What do these results tell me about my insulin resistance and pancreas function? Anything else I should clue into?
Okay, so these numbers are they're Canadian numbers, and so your insulin is really high. Your glucose is high, your fasting glucose is high, your insulin is high. Your A1C is a lot better. The 6.5 to 5.9 is a great change. So in only 1 month of since starting the diabetes solution kit, your hemoglobin A1C, which is the average blood sugar, dropped down. So your average blood sugar went from 6.5, which is about 150, 130, 150 but in Canada, it would be like 8, between 8 and 9. And so your fasting glucose of 7 ideally should be between 4 and 5. So 7 is a little high. So you still have insulin resistance, and but your blood sugar is a lot better because your fasting insulin is pretty high, 59, which means your pancreas is making a lot of insulin. So, so the best way to deal with this is to improve insulin sensitivity. And you do that with exercising and avoiding sugar. So not eating sugar and exercise are the two best things you can do to make your insulin, to improve your insulin sensitivity. The other thing you can do is have an empty stomach as much as possible. So whatever it takes to have an empty stomach, as long as you want, as long as you can, whatever, keep your stomach empty, because as your stomach is empty, you stop making insulin. And you use up all of that glucose that's packed in your cells. And so then they start saying, okay, now we're ready to take in some more glucose. And so they'll make more insulin receptors so that your insulin will become more sensitive. And that's exactly what we were talking about. What diabetes type 2 is, how it's toxicity, the cells being overburdened, which is why that insulin has to be so high to bring your blood sugar down a little bit.
All right. Just checking for a question here. Okay, see that one. All right. Tanya says, first of all, I want to say, Bob, thanks for giving us those numbers. That's really good for all of us to kind of look at and to go through, because a lot of people have similar type of things going on. So thank you for sharing those with us. Tanya says, how can you tell when you are burning fat? Can you feel it?
No, you shouldn't feel it. But it's kind of like the guy I was telling you about that was after fasting for 3 days. He's like, man, I feel clear. My head is clear. I have plenty of energy. I'm able to go work out. And so he can tell the difference. When you're burning fat, you tend to have more energy and have more clarity. People who do like ketogenic diet often say the same thing. They have more clarity in their brain and more energy in their body. So some people can tell when they're burning fat, but not everybody can. It doesn't make a big difference to me. I don't notice any changes, and I fasted for 14 days. For me, it's all the same. I can tell when I get hypoglycemic, low blood sugar. I can tell that for sure. I've almost passed out, and I have passed out a couple of times. Yeah.
All right. Tanya also says, I've started exercising and my sugar is a little higher. Should I stop until I'm more sensitive to insulin? What are your thoughts?
Oh, no, exercising is great. It tells your body to make more glucagon, so you make more sugar, and the sugar goes up a little. Remember, the blood sugar is not the issue. It's insulin sensitivity. You need to exercise. So exercising more is a good idea. It increases your insulin sensitivity.
All right. Beverly, welcome back. Beverly has just returned from nearly 2 weeks in Scotland. The food provided was delicious and the portions were much bigger than normal. I had no control over what was served or how much. There were, however, only breakfast and dinner. In between, we walked and hiked up to 6 miles a day. I'm 82 and rarely exceed 2 miles a day strolling. So I lost 5 pounds. My blood pressure was all over the place in the early morning, but consistently low during the day. I don't have ways to measure blood sugar daily, but I look forward to seeing where my A1C has reduced from 6.1. When I know more, I will let you know. But I have mostly been sleeping a lot since I got back. Neuropathic symptoms in feet are significantly less.
Okay, so here you have a great example of somebody they're traveling, they're walking a lot more than usual, so there's more exercise, and eating only 2 meals a day. It makes such a difference to have an empty stomach. Eating 2 meals a day is a great idea. It's just great. Everybody should be eating 2 meals a day. I think I don't know of anybody who needs 3 meals a day. I just don't. Even children growing up, and young children, at least at times, young children should eat 3 meals a day, maybe even 4, maybe even have snacks. But then sometimes, parents are saying, I had this one. Can I tell a story? This is funny. When I was a resident, I had this mom, and I spoke Spanish, and this mom was speaking Spanish to me, and she said, my child has not eaten anything for 2 weeks. And I'm watching this kid, this little, I don't know, 1-year-old kid, kind of toddling around and looking at things, and looked perfectly normal to me. And I'm like, okay, so you're telling me the kid hasn't eaten anything in 2 weeks? And she said, no. I said, nothing at all? Like nothing has gone into his mouth? No, nothing. And so I'm like, I don't get it. So I went out and I talked to my preceptor, the other doctor, and he decided to come in with me. So he came in and he just asked her one question. So does your kid like McDonald's? And she goes, oh yeah, that's all he eats, like all the time. He won't eat anything at home. We have to go out to McDonald's every time. And that's just solved the mystery of not eating anything. But eating 2 meals a day is a great idea. And then the increased exercise and your weight went down. Beautiful. That's a good example for everyone.
All right. Rena says, can the 3-day fast work with a juice or smoothie fast without fruit? Or maybe with broths and green juices?
Yeah, Dr. Walter Longo did some research on that. And when they came up with people, you're eating stuff during a fast. Well, if you're eating something, you're not fasting. Fasting means empty stomach. And that's what I told, that guy that came in yesterday. I said, fasting is an empty stomach. If you're putting something in your stomach, you're not fasting. Even water. People often say, can I do a juice cleanse, or they call it a fast, but it's not really fasting. It's a cleanse, juice cleanse or broth cleanse or something like that. Yeah, you can. The problem with juice is it has sugar and it causes you to release a bunch of insulin. And that's the problem I have with Dr. Longo. Also has a fasting kit. He calls it a Prolon kit. And it's a 5-day fast and it's not really fasting because you have this drink with glycerin and it's kind of sweet. And then you have some bars and some stuff. And so you're not fasting, your fasting means don't put anything in your mouth. So your stomach is empty. Then you make a hormone called ghrelin. If you put something in your stomach, you stop making ghrelin, even water. So if you stop making ghrelin, then you're not going to make human growth hormone. If you don't make human growth hormone, you don't repair and cleanse and detox your body. So, there's advantages. So when I did a 14-day fast, I did broth. I drank broth twice a day, 16 ounces twice a day. And that was to keep my hydration up. So, because I continue working the whole time, I'm not laying around. I do my runs, I do my normal exercise, I do my routine. So, long story short, yes, you can do a 3-day cleanse of some kind with broth or something, and that's okay. And it has its benefits. But the greatest benefit is dry fasting. The second greatest benefit is water only. And then you still have some benefits from from drinking like broth or vegetable juice or something like that.
All right. And this is a fun one. We haven't talked about this in a long time. Tanya said, why isn't kale on the free food list? I love kale and eat it every day.
Okay. Kale should definitely be on the free food list. I don't know why it's not there. One of the things, we had a nutritionist in our office who found out that kale is the single best superfood of all the superfoods in the world. Kale tops the list as the highest nutrient to calorie ratio. And so she was eating kale every day. And she was eating a lot of kale every day, like kale salads, like just kale, like a lot of it, and cooking kale and eating it. And she got toxic on kale because it has oxalic acid that binds magnesium and calcium. And so she started getting cramps in her muscles and everything. She found out it was because she was eating kale every day. So just be careful with the kale every day. It's great, but I don't know if you want to eat it every day or with every meal.
Yeah. All right. Patricia says, I buy Cinechroma in bulk, but I noticed the last one I opened is congealed and moldy. Have you experienced this from anyone before? I reached out to customer service, but I didn't have any luck. Oh, goodness. I've never heard of that happening, but I suppose it could if it got hot or something. I would
No, wait a minute. You know what? I had one of my patients called me and said, the Cinechroma came and the pills are different than they used to be. Now they're white. They used to be brown. And I called Kevin and Kevin said that they're playing whack-a-mole with these. If you bought Cinechroma in bulk from like Amazon or something like that, then they often have, Amazon has fake Cinechroma all over the place. And so it's not from our company at all.
Yeah, I would definitely. So either way, send an email to, if you didn't do this, you might have already done this, send an email to support@bartonpublishing.com. They'll help you figure out where you got it. They want to know if you didn't purchase it from us. If it was purchased from someone who's trying to mimic our products, they need to know that right away. And they'll figure it out. So support@bartonpublishing.com. I forgot about that. I forget that people do that in this world.
Yeah.
It's terrible. All right. Sue says, please explain why not to use fiber greens and when is a safe time to start using it?
Okay. If you have insulin resistance, then the taste of sweet can increase your insulin resistance. So the purpose for fiber greens was mostly for people on the heart program that needed extra fiber. And so we're actually in the process of making a fiber greens that's unflavored. And so when that comes out, then you can take fiber greens. Otherwise, if there's a sweetener in it, just avoid it. Yeah. I actually this is a really interesting case. A doctor, she's a neonatologist, and I was talking to her this morning about this. She took one of those little pills, antihistamine pills, that's the dissolve in your mouth under your tongue pills, and it has aspartame in it. And she said her blood sugar shot up like crazy. It was over 300 just from taking an aspartame, a little pill with aspartame in it. That artificial sweetener can be a bad thing.
Okay. Andrew says, last week, I thank Barton Nutrition for helping me to reduce my sugar in urine from 28 millimoles per liter to negative. I managed to maintain this. I still have inflammation in both my legs, but more so the left leg. Dr. Saunders thought I have sciatica, but I actually have diabetic neuropathy because my feet muscles are so weak, I have problems balancing. I tried phase 1, but on the 6th day without carbs, I almost passed out. I have been taking Cinechroma and turmeric BP twice a day. What else must I do to detox the old sugar in my blood vessels and repair my nerve damages?
Okay. Thank you, Andrew. Andrew, this is really important, and I hope everybody's listening, because You go right into the phase 1 of the program, and you're eating your 20 carbs a day, and you have really high insulin resistance, and you can't burn fat for energy, and now you're not eating enough sugar, so you get hypoglycemic. So that's what happened. You got hypoglycemic, and that's a problem by itself. So it's really simple. Just ease into it a little bit at a time. So eat 60 grams of carbohydrates a day for like a week, and then 40 grams of carbohydrates a day for like a week, and then 30 grams of carbohydrates a day for a week, and then 20 grams of carbohydrates a day. And then you can pretty much go off it by then, because if you can do 30 grams, you can do 20. Anyway, so work into it just gradually, because the only way you're going to detox all of those things in your legs is to get rid of all that carbohydrate. And the only way to do it is to quit eating it.
All right. Anonymous said, what is fat burning metabolism? Apart from eating good sources of fat, should protein meals be included with the fats in the diet, such as meats, etc.?
They can be included. Younger people do really well with like a vegan diet without extra protein, any high concentrated proteins. You know what? Older people seem to need more protein, and the research is kind of showing that. People, as we age, we just seem to need more protein. So yeah, you could include that. That's fine, the protein. So the question of what is a fat burning metabolism is the body prefers to burn glucose. The glucose is quick energy. It's easy energy. Fat requires some processing. It requires some enzymes, a little bit of work to get to the energy part of the fat. So, as a quick energy, the sugar's the go-to kind of thing. So you kind of have to, people who've been eating a lot of carbs, you kind of have to train your body to burn fat. You have to change the enzymes that are available so that they can burn fat instead of glucose. Fat burning metabolism means you're using fat for energy instead of glucose. And it's not an either or situation for your whole body. It's really more of a normal metabolism is 60% fat and 40% carbs. So 40% glucose, 60% fat. And that's where you should be. If you have insulin resistance, it's usually just the opposite, 60% fat, 40% glucose. So I'm sorry, 60% glucose, 40% fat. So that's the sugar burning metabolism, the glucose burning metabolism. So you want to switch it back to 60% fat, 40% glucose.
Okay, so how can I possibly fast when my sugar goes as low as 45 if I don't eat after about 14 hours? Fortunately, when I'm asleep, my Dexcom alarm starts going off at night. So I drink apple juice and a little protein. What am I doing wrong? I use Toujeo insulin, maybe, I'm not sure what that is. I use insulin between 35 and 40 units.
Okay. So if you're using insulin and your blood sugar is getting low, then you're using too much insulin. Because as you're fasting, you don't need any insulin. Toujeo is a immediate reacting insulin, but 40 units, that's a lot. I don't have people on 5 or 10 units, max of 4, 2, 3, 4 units usually. So you're on a high dose of insulin, and so you're using a lot of insulin. That's why your blood sugar is getting low. So you just decrease the insulin.
All right. Michelle says my blood test indicates that I have excess chromium. I was taking trichromium and synochroma. He told me I need to stop taking any chromium supplements. I can stop the synochroma, but I'm concerned that I cannot figure out which is the trichromium. I've set up the supplement cases for many weeks and tossed the empty trichromium, and I don't know which one it is. Do you know what it looks like?
No, I don't know what it looks like.
All right.
Darn, that's a problem. People often, they come to me, they say, well, I take a blue pill. Oh, I don't know what a blue pill. I don't, I'm not a pharmacist and I don't get to see the pills.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Okay. Anonymous said, still waiting for 14 bottles of synochroma. Type 2 on Januvia, recent A1C was 6.7. My question is, should I get the diabetes solution kit and the diabetes detox kit?
Okay, with a hemoglobin A1C of 6.7, you have diabetes and you definitely need the diabetes solution kit. The supplements are supplemental. That's all they are. Don't think of them as, oh, I'm going to take this and I'm going to get better. No, that does not make you better. Well, it does occasionally, but rarely. Don't expect it. Really, the diabetes solution kit is the solution, not the pills that you're taking.
All right. Matt says, what should your activity level be during a 3-day fast?
Well, I usually run a 5K. It should be maintain a good activity level. Yeah, just whatever you normally do. And you can even increase it because what that does when you increase your activity or using your muscles, then the muscles open up and let glucose in. So that improves insulin sensitivity. So you're still getting the benefits of that.
All right. Rosalind says, good afternoon. How do you know if your kidneys are going bad? I keep asking them, how is my kidneys? They never give me a straight answer. It's always, they're okay. How can I, or what should I look at on my blood test to know if I'm in a good level when I look at my labs?
Okay, so look at your labs, and there's going to be two numbers for kidneys that are the primary ones. One is called a creatinine level. And the creatinine level should be around 1, ideally less than 1. People who have a lot of muscle and are using their muscle or exercising a lot might have it a little over 1, but it should be right around 1. And then the other one, the key one, is an estimated glomerular filtration rate, EGFR. And that GFR is going to give you a number. And depending on the lab, that'll be different numbers. The lab that I use, it's over 60 is normal. There's another lab that sometimes I get it's over 90 is normal. It just depends on which numbers they're using to estimate this glomerular filtration rate. So that's a good way to look at your kidneys. If you're looking at your labs, the metabolic panel is going to have that EGFR on it, and look at that, and then it'll tell you what the normal is, and you can see how where you are compared to the normal.
Okay, Michelle says, what happens to bowel movements when you do a 3-day fast, dry or with water?
It changes, but like some people will go for a day or two without having a bowel movement, and that's okay. You haven't eaten anything, so it's okay. Some people, I've talked to people who continue to have bowel movements and normal bowel movements throughout the time, because you got to remember, like 3/4 of your bowel movement is bacteria anyway. So, and yeah, you're not feeding them, but there's always stuff in there, I guess they eat.
Delbert says, how does stress affect your body when you have type 2? What do you recommend to lower stress?
Okay, do not think about lowering stress. Stress causes insulin resistance. And we've talked a lot about stress, and you can go back and look on some of the webinars where we've just only talked about stress, and that's a lot of information on stress. But stress makes your blood sugar go up. So people get sick, their blood sugar goes up. People go to the doctor, their blood sugar goes up. People go to the dentist, their blood sugar goes up. People get in any stressful situation, they go into court and their blood sugar goes up. And any kind of stressful situation is going to cause your blood sugar to go up. But don't worry about that. And don't think, oh no, you're getting all stressed out over being stressed out, right? That doesn't work. The best thing to do is to relax, to be quiet, relaxed, and give yourself time to be quiet and relaxed at times, whenever that is. So for me, I get up early in the morning before anybody else gets up, because once other people get up, forget it. I can't be alone. So then I can be alone. I can pray. I can read. I can write in my journal. Writing in a journal is like so big. What's his name? Jordan Peterson is a psychologist, and he did a YouTube video on writing in a journal, and how amazing it is for preventing mental illness and stress and all that. Anyway, so those are some ideas that you can do to deal with stress, and it's not about avoiding stress. It's really about giving yourself time to relax in between the stress.
All right. And we've done a couple of webinars just on that. So you might want to check some of that out. But although you don't want to focus on it either. So I don't know. Okay. All right. We got to hurry. Oh my goodness. All right. Don says I was on 1,000 milligrams of metformin 2 times a day. I've now switched to berberine. What would be an equivalent amount of berberine?
Oh, it's interesting. It's right about the same amount. So you would do 800 to 1,000 milligrams twice a day, something like that. Yeah, it's about the same amount.
Okay. Rinda says, what is ideal for fasting glucose and fasting insulin levels? When one reaches these levels, is a 3-day fast once a month a good idea for maintenance?
Okay. Ideal for fasting glucose and fasting insulin. Okay, fasting glucose, the optimal is between 70 and 90 if you're in the United States or using those numbers. If you're in Canada or using those numbers, it's between 4 and 5, right? Is that right? 4 and 5. Mm-hmm. And the insulin should be on a fasting insulin, it should be 5. So if it's 6 or 7 or 8, that's okay. If it's 3, that's okay. So anywhere between like 3 and 8 should be right around 5. And once you reach these levels, a 3-day fast once a month is a great idea for anyone. If all you ever did was a 3-day fast once a month, it would prevent you from getting cancer. It would prevent you from getting heart disease. It would prevent you from getting diabetes. It would just like fix everything. And what's really weird is you can probably pretty much eat anything you want in between times if you fast 3 days once a month.
Which is crazy.
Okay. Think.
This is the last one here. Frank and Pat said the public health diabetes nutritionist instructed towards 30 grams of carbs per meal and 15 grams of carbs for snacks. After listening to Dr. Saunders, I can see how wrong we are doing this. Is 20-gram carbs daily really possible? Ordering my phase 1 diabetes kit, type 2, petite, no weight problem.
Okay. Type 2, no weight problem. Okay. So if you don't have a weight problem, make sure you do your tests first before you start the diabetes solution kit. Because if you don't have a weight problem, then you need to know how much insulin you're making. So do the glucose, hemoglobin A1C, the C-peptide, and insulin levels. Do those 4 tests. And if you want, you can send them to us or bring them to the next webinar, and that would be great. And then we'll go over them and explain them like we did today with somebody else.
Perfect. Okay, thank you, Dr. Saunders. See you tomorrow on the Healthy Heart webinar.
All right. Hasta mañana.
Bye-bye. You guys can join us tomorrow as well on the Healthy Heart webinar. Register at bartonwebinar.com. It is free. Same thing, same kind of setup as this. You can ask your questions and it is so good. So we look forward to seeing you there. And if not, I'll see you next week. Let a friend know about these webinars. You can also catch all of the replays. If you go to bartonwebinar.com, you'll find a link to our YouTube channel. And I would recommend that you subscribe to that because then you'll get notified every time we upload a new video. Okay, thanks so much, guys. Have a wonderful day.